I'd love to get started. So would you like to start with telling me a bit more about yourself and your business?
Yeah, okay. So my name is Richard Thompson. I am working with a company called Red Sky Personnel. We are a small business. There's, I think, 25 of us right now. We're in growth mode, so that's going in the upward direction. And we operate primarily in two spaces in the UK, one being in the aviation industry, and that's particularly around airports and all of the operations and activity that typically go on in and around an airport. And we also have what we call the infrastructure business, which is typically around sort of construction and civil engineering, so major projects, like a high-speed 2 would be one that probably most people might recognise at the moment. But we also have two other parts of our business, one being a referencing business, which is specifically for our aviation business. So anybody that works in and around an airport or in an airport, they need to have airside passes. And we conduct a lot of the processes on behalf of the client and ourselves for that. And we also have an international business as well, where we do a lot of work, particularly in the Middle East at the moment, covering airports and also infrastructure projects over there as well. So whilst we might be small, we're busy.
It sounds like you are very busy. Is the Middle East venture, is that a newer addition to the business, or has that been going a while?
Well, it's been going, our activity in the Middle East has been going for a couple of years. We haven't actually got boots on the ground in the Middle East at the minute, although that's imminent. We've got so many opportunities and so much activity over there. We really do need a presence. But of course, as anybody knows who's opened international offices before, which I have, it's not quite as simple as that. You need to tread carefully and make sure you do things in the right order. It could be a costly mistake if you don't do things right, and not just in terms of your physical presence there, like offices and facilities, but also people. You have to have the right people.
What are the current trends that you're aware of in the market? Have things changed recently with how operations are managed?
There's obviously two letters that are always going to come up when you have this conversation. One of them's A and the other one's I, in that order. And it's interesting. There's so much talk and information being bandied around about AI and how it's impacting the industry. And of course it is. But I believe it's impacting the industry on a positive note, not on a negative note.
Right.
People that talk about, AI replacing recruiters. I mean, I've been in this game for almost 27 years, and there's been a number of different technologies that have come to the front in that time that was going to replace recruiters. Yeah, I'm still here, and so are plenty of others, and some of them have been around a lot longer than I have. So look, but we embrace it, and whilst I don't think it will replace recruiters, I think if you don't embrace it, then you are doomed. So we are doing what we can in order to embrace the tech, not all of them obviously, but certainly technologies that we've found to benefit us, and that's evolving almost on a daily basis at the moment.
So another thing keeping you on your toes, and do you think obviously it's finding that balance, isn't it, between having it work for you and then, like you say, not taking over completely? Do you think other recruiters are sort of keen to embrace it, or has there been?
Well, interestingly, I was at an event very recently, a couple of weeks ago, and somebody put some data on the screen that said that 10% of companies that were surveyed are using AI. Of the other 90%, only 30 of those 90% were had plans to introduce AI into the business, and 60% didn't. So I don't know why that is. I don't know whether there are companies out there that are being run by people that have been around for so long that they don't want to embrace technology, or I'm not sure. But we didn't have that level of detail. But certainly we are very much in that 10%, and I'd like to think we're probably in the top half of that 10% in terms of what we've done. Thankfully, one of our shareholders, Mark, is very pro technology, and as am I. I'm one of the technology leaders in the business, so I think we're doing pretty well for a company of our size.
And I guess getting in there sort of early stages really puts you at the forefront, probably in that area.
I agree, but you need to be careful. If you're because sometimes you can procure technology that is out of date very, very quickly. So you just need to be very careful. Some of them aren't cheap. And whether they're right for your business or not, it would be easy to jump in 2 feet first, I think, and end up wasting a lot of money on something which actually, had you given it a bit more time, you might realise it isn't right for your business. So
yeah, very true. So on that basis, are there any other sort of current issues being faced by the recruitment industry as things change?
Well, yeah, I think people. I think that the whole thing around people. Look, I mean, recruitment is very different. Recruitment is a career path now.
Yeah,
it was no career path when I joined recruitment. I fell into recruitment like many people did. I didn't have anything else better to do at the time, and I did that, and and I'm still here. But that presents challenges because long gone are the days of there's a desk, there's a phone, here's a list of people, start calling them. People expect more than that. So you have to be geared up for the new generation of people that are coming in. So training, mentorship, which we do a lot of at Red Sky. The whole culture of a business needs to be right for the younger generation of people that are coming in, because even things like hybrid working, for example, is very much seen as something which should be on offer now, and some businesses embrace it, some don't. We do. We have a mixture of pure home workers, hybrid, and pure office.
That went up with the pandemic as well, didn't it? And then
it did, and I think there's two things. One is that's shown business leaders that actually people can work from home and be productive, and especially in recruitment, and I can speak from personal experience here, that I was very anti people working from home, because I thought that if people are at home, they're going to be watching Home and Away or whatever's on during the day, and that's proven to be not the case with most people.
I was going to say, how do companies deal with that? Do they put certain processes in place to make sure that people are keeping on target, on track?
Well, yeah, I mean, we use technology. So we use the CRM, and built in our CRM, we have an analytics tool. It's the industry leading CRM, and we embrace that tool. Whilst obviously that gives you, a set of data in terms of numbers, in terms of a level of activity, it's not the be all and end all, because it's easy for somebody to mask their activity with numbers and not have the qualities there. So you need to drill a little bit deeper. But look, I mean, ultimately, you have to trust people, and ordinarily people, if you trust them, will perform well. I've learned myself, since COVID and the lockdown days, that if you trust people, then most people will respond, but some can't. Some people are just not suited to working on their own and working at home. And I myself, I don't like working at home. I don't like working alone. I like to be in an office surrounded by people. That's what makes me tick. So it doesn't suit me.
Obviously doesn't suit everybody. Some people need that extra layer of discipline, I guess.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
And to be able to sort of walk away from the office at the end of the day. So I can see that it doesn't work for everybody. So how would you say changes are affecting your business right now?
Okay, well, we've got some challenges. Obviously, I've already mentioned sort of keeping abreast of technology is critical. There are some significant cost changes that has impacted all of us in the last week with the new financial year, and that affects anybody that has a PAYE model. We also, obviously, as we're a contract business, we supply contracts or temporary staff to our customers, and many of those are on a PAYE tax status, and that presents challenges going back to clients with statutory uplifts. Even though you've got agreed margins in place, so that it can present challenges. So there's a lot of financial challenge, I think, in terms of running the business at the moment. But yeah, I think those two things, look, competition, particularly in our construction sector, actually that's in both. Both construction and aviation, competition is rife.
Right.
We like to think we're at the in the topper echelons of that, but there's always somebody coming to wait. Will come and try and get your customer if you don't treat your customer well and give them what they want and build good relationships.
Right.
I think that with sort of more modern communication, like we're having this meeting over Zoom,
Yes.
and I think that a lot of the old school face-to-face meetings that used to build relationships don't happen anymore, and we're really pro still doing that at Red Sky, because look, this is great and it's convenient, and it obviously allows us to sort of keep our carbon footprint to a minimum by getting in cars. Ultimately, having a good relationship with a long-term client will keep you close to them, because you'll always learn more sitting in front of them than you will when you're sitting in front of a laptop, in my opinion.
Definitely. And at the other end of the scale, are there things right now that are making it easier to operate? Obviously, I know you're embracing tech, certain things easier. Could you give some sort of any other insights into that, or any other things that are making it easier right now?
I don't like using the word easy when I'm talking about recruitment, because less difficult, less challenging. Yeah, look, I mean, obviously, technology is the way forward, but I think that one thing that we're trying to do more of and become better at, which we've got some way to go, is making use of the data that we've already spent money on gathering. We spend a lot of money on marketing and advertising, and we capture some fantastic candidates who want to use us to help find their next role. And and the percentage of those people that we help is very, very small, probably like most agencies. And whilst we can never help everybody, of course not, I think that we can do more by digging deeper into our database, to offer more opportunities to people, and by doing that, spending less money on advertising and marketing. I appreciate we've always got to spend money on advertising and marketing, but there's nothing more frustrating as a leader in a business when you see a candidate that's been placed, that's applied for an advert, and you saw that they were already in your database a year ago.
Yeah,
it's very frustrating, but it happens. So we're trying to make a better use of the candidate database that we've already invested a lot of money in.
Of course, yes, that makes perfect sense. So I guess with lots of companies, not just in the recruitment industry, it's like you say, converting those leads that you get through your data, the capacity to deal with those and following up and going back. And so again, in that vein, how easy or difficult or challenging, should we say, are you finding it to attract and retain clients at the moment? And why would you think that is?
Attract and retain, okay. Attracting quality clients, because anybody can attract a client, but whether it's a client that you actually want to work with or not, it's a different story, one of the challenges that, and it's always been around, to be fair, is how do you identify a quality bit of business from a not quality bit of business? Right. And I read a lot of stuff on LinkedIn and posts on other social media from business leaders who looking at margin erosion, so margins being driven down by new people coming into the market, setting up. It's very, very easy to set up a recruitment business. I could do it. You could give me half an hour, I'll register a company, and Richard Thompson Recruitment is up and running. So there's very little barrier to entry, and quite often new kids on the block, they want to drive the price down in order to win an opportunity. We do not buy business at Red Sky. The simple rule for me is if it's not profitable, then I'm not doing it. And you don't need to. There's enough quality companies out there that do need a partnership, because we very much see our relationship with our customers as partnerships. Yeah. In order to solve a problem, and if they haven't got a problem, then I haven't got a solution, and we'll walk away. And so, but sometimes that's difficult, particularly for new people who are coming on board, business developers, because they want to succeed, they want to land the next deal, but there's an education there as to about what's a good deal and what isn't. And I find that really challenging, because it can be like, it can be like pushing boulders uphill sometimes, and it's very, very difficult.
And that's what makes the difference between retaining long-term clients.
Yeah, absolutely it does, yeah.
You ones that start up with sort of no idea really what they're doing, and then perhaps getting plenty of clients, but not decent clients.
Well, look, it's pretty simple, isn't it? If I've got a client that I've got a relationship with, and that client chooses to end that relationship to go with a company that's cheaper than me, okay, well, next week they might be dropping that company to go with a company that's cheaper than them. So there is no relationship, So building a relationship is not built around price. Of course, there's commercials have to be agreed, but it's very much partnership is understanding their business, them understanding what we do, how we do it, how long it takes to do it, and where the value is in what we do. That's how partnerships are built. Okay, but we're trying to educate particularly newer people who might have come out of a estate agency or some other salesy type environment. That's not always easy.
I can imagine, yeah. So it's sort of retraining them to understand that it's a value-based approach rather than...
Absolutely.
And how easy or challenging are you finding it to attract and retain high-quality marketing and sales team members?
It depends. Okay, so look, if I'm going to the market to look for somebody with experience, that there are lots of recruiters who jump from job to job to job who may not be suited to this industry. Okay, and you see lots of those CVs that come from recruitment to recruitment agencies. And I understand, that look, there's a job for everyone somewhere, but whether it's in recruitment or not is questionable with some people. I find that the entry-level trainee route to be better. I've hired thousands of recruiters in my time in recruitment, and the best have always started as a trainee with me. We teach them our way. They haven't been tainted by somebody else's method. Yeah. That doesn't sound wrong, but anyway, hopefully you know what I mean.
Yes.
And then quite often, those people, the cream rises to the crop. And I'm funny if I was having this conversation with a colleague the other day, because we're in the position to potentially be hiring somebody at management level. And I've rarely, I can probably count on one hand the number of successful managers I've hired directly as a manager from other businesses. All, I think, 99% of the successful managers that have been in my business units over the years have been homegrown.
Right. Come on.
You know, so, but you want to hire in experience, right? Because you need to bring, you know, it's good to have experience from other sectors, from other recruitment businesses into the business. And we do have some success stories, but it's hard. You know, it's hard. You know, recruiters have the gift of the gab. You know, if you know, even you know, and I think I've heard it all. But you know, you get some good, you know, people who appear to be great who sit in front of you, and you know.
Yeah,
maybe they're not as great as they're made out, but I don't know. I guess all industries have that problem, but it is challenging trying to find experience because everybody wants it, right?
of course. Yeah. So you've got quite a good strategy there, sort of doing the homegrown training.
Yeah. And a lot of my time, I'd probably say, you know, at least half of my time in the business is spent training and mentoring people. I'm not talking about in a classroom with, you know, PowerPoint slides. I'm talking about sitting with them, looking at how they're doing what they're doing, trying to give them better ways and better techniques.
So a lot of one-to-one input from yourself.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, look, everybody's different, and you know what John needs mentoring on and training on, Jenny doesn't. You know, so I believe it's much better on a one-to-one sort of a mentoring type level. It works well for us, and it's worked well for me for many years. So.
Great. So if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Kind of, you know, keep doing.
Well, I just think it might not be broken. It doesn't need fixing, but you can make it run more efficiently.
Right.
And it's really about making people, you know, enhancing what they can already do, making them more efficient, you know, and making them more profitable. And the more profitable they are, usually the happier they are, and the more income they make. So yeah, it works quite well for us, you know, and I enjoy it. You know, I enjoy working with people on a one-to-one level. I get a lot from it myself. So
great. So and obviously, you know, job satisfaction is. Sort of keep doing what you're doing, and that leads on to my next question, which was going to be actually around your role personally within the business, your sort of your day to day. What does that look like? What are sort of the main things that you focus on in your position?
Okay, so I mean, I still run a desk, funny enough, because I just don't seem to be able to, you know, let go of that sort of client interaction. I don't do a huge amount of recruitment for candidates, but I still run a desk, and I now these days tend to focus on exec level roles with a very small number of clients, and you can end up spending an awful lot of money on tools. You know, I don't work as many hours nowadays as I used to, thankfully. I think it would kill me if I did the amount of hours that I used to when I started in recruitment. So I have a good work-life balance, but really when I'm not, you know, on the desk sort of talking to mostly client contacts and the odd candidate, is really, you know, doing what I've already mentioned, which is looking at mentoring, the mentoring program, but also, you know, taking a step back and having a more strategic view on where the company's going. You know, the business, you know, Mark and Claire, who own the business, you know, they're younger than me. They've not been around as long as me, and they're very receptive to, to look at it better ways and other ways of doing things. You know, so as a board, there's 4 of us on the board that, you know, we work really well. You know, I bring, you know, 27 years of experience. They bring other qualities that I don't have, mainly youth. You know, and it works well. So, you know, it's really strategy, mentoring, and still recruitment, you know.
And is there any part of sort of your day to day that you'd like to change, streamline, or to sort of, you know, step away from in your role?
Oh, good question. No, I don't think there is, you know, because I think I'm the sort of person, if something's not right, I'll change it. You know, if I don't like doing it, I'm not going to do it anymore. I'll find someone else that can do it, you know, ideally better than I can. Because I'm a firm believer, if you don't like doing something, you're probably not going to do it very well. So I'd rather get somebody else to do it who's better than me. So no, there's nothing obvious really that sort of stands out. Yeah, it's a good question though.
Okay, so food for thought there.
It is, yeah.
Sounds like you're really proactive in that case then, you know, like you say, if it's something that you don't particularly want to handle anymore, get somebody else involved to do that. And
yeah, I like to think so. I mean, look, sometimes there's stuff that I have to do because nobody else in the business knows how to do it. I mean, I deal with our CRM. I still look after our CRM and do the administrative side of that, which sort of secretly I quite enjoy, you know, because I'm into technology, but sometimes it's dull. You know, having to deal with techies in America to sort out a problem with your CRM is and it can be quite time consuming sometimes. And I'm not the most patient person in the world. So, but I guess that's probably what made me good at recruitment. But yeah, it makes me not so good at other things like dealing with IT people. Sorry, IT people.
No, honestly, technology can be very frustrating. I agree with you on that one. So, what are the most important metrics right now for the business, would you say, in order to keep growing, to keep sort of going in the right direction?
Well, I think sort of front end, on the operational or the sales and the recruitment side of the business, it's really we're very activity driven. So whilst obviously we have KPIs around calls and meetings and things like that, I think the quality of what we're doing is critical. And we have ways that we can drill down into the quality of the quantity, if you like. I think behind the scenes, profitability. I think looking at return on investment for marketing and advertising is critical, because the costs are spiraling out, not out of control, but they're spiraling enormously. And that's not going to change anytime soon. As we talk quite a bit about AI and technology, and these things don't come cheap. That actually don't make you any money. So looking at your ROI on technology and other external factors, is, I think, really critical. And we need to get better at that, if I'm honest.
Yeah, it's sort of, so it's really about picking and choosing carefully and not being sold a gimmick, or that. I guess there's quite a lot out there to choose from, and it's sort of
20 years or probably 25 years when job boards first came out on the internet, because I started recruiting before there was the internet, and I remember when I first sent a CV by email, so that was a long time ago. But when job boards first came out, there was like 5 main job boards, and it'd be very easy for you to spend $2,000 a month on each one of those job boards. Well, now with the and I remember when Indeed first came out, and that was sort of like put your job anywhere and it would appear on Indeed.
Yeah.
So back then that was what we had to be careful from. I could end up spending all of our profit on job boards with ease, whereas now it's more business information. We invest quite a lot of money in business information coming in, and as we already mentioned a few times, the technology. So yeah, it's just making sure that actually we're getting something back for the money we're investing.
Sure, totally get that. And sort of looking to the future then for the business, what are the future goals, say, firstly for the next 6 to 12 months, would you say?
I think, look, we're in a growth mode in terms of people. So identifying new talent, bringing them in. As we're bringing people in, we're onboarding them, training them, mentoring them properly so that they become a success.
Yeah.
Looking at our international offering and our referencing offering in the aviation space. For a small company of 25 people, we've got 4 directors. And a lot of people, that would sound like quite a lot.
Yeah.
But we don't just sit around the board, bark out instructions to people. Once we leave that boardroom, we're hands-on doing whatever it is that we're doing. So we wear multiple hats. And I think that we've got to make sure that we don't overstretch ourselves as well. So,
yes.
So I think that's important.
So if you could name one thing that would make life easier within the business right now, what do you think that might be?
Oh, one thing that would make life easier in the business. A training manager that knows everything that the 4 of the directors know. Oh,
okay. That would be good, wouldn't it? Maybe a robot that sort of absorbs.
Yeah, there you go. A piece of AI that can do. Maybe that's coming. Maybe that's maybe I need to create that. But yeah, look, I mean, it's all about leadership, isn't it? Business growth is about good leadership. People will follow good leaders, and people will produce a profitable desk if you get them going in the right direction and give them the opportunities and the tools to do that. And there's certainly no shortage of opportunities out there. So it's choosing your battles carefully, making sure that you don't trade with companies that are too challenging, non-profitable, want a service for free. There's dozens and dozens of them, thousands of them out there, in fact. So avoiding those, choosing your battles carefully, and providing an absolutely A1 service to the companies that you do choose to partner with.
Are there things that you've implemented into the business previously that perhaps haven't worked out so well for you?
Oh, no, never. Yeah, of course. There's lots of things, and again, a lot of them are sort of technology driven. Well, either people that we've invested in who didn't quite turn out to be what we wanted, or technology that we've invested in that didn't do what we needed it to do. And certainly had a good example of that recently. It was a back office system that I spent 6 months working with an external supplier on,
Yeah.
and they lost a key member of their team, and they had to fold the project. So,
what are the implications of sort of that kind of
well,
issue?
I mean, one, it's wasted 6 months of my time, but two, the product that they were building for us is now gone.
Oh my goodness.
So it's not just 6 months of a waste. We're now, it's set us back 6 months because we've now got to start that whole process over again. And it's not something I enjoy. That sort of back office software is not something I enjoy being involved with, if I'm honest. But I'm probably the best person to, or was the best person at the time to deal with it. So yeah, so that was a challenge.
And how did you sort of solve that problem? Did you get another?
I haven't yet.
Oh, okay. So it's
a hot topic. Yeah, it didn't happen that long ago, and it's trying to find an organisation that can do what we need them to do. We're a small business, so sometimes you know what you want, and or you think you know where to go and get it, but we might not be a particularly attractive proposition to companies because we're too small.
Right.
So that can be a challenge as well. So.
Okay. Well, thanks ever so much, Richard. Is there anything else you'd like to share with us at the moment about your business?
No, I think we've covered quite a lot. I just think that what we're doing in the international space. There are. I mean, I was on a call this morning to Abu Dhabi with a customer, and the international demand for quality recruitment services. So it doesn't really matter about what they're looking for.
Right.
We've talked a lot about technology, so I could find any type of candidate anywhere on the globe. With the improved technology that we've got around us these days, but building those relationships with clients who truly value what you do,
yes,
is the absolute key to a successful business. And and if I could offer one bit of advice to anybody that's coming into this new, is that don't buy business. It doesn't work.
No, I totally agree with you there. And, I think you've given a really, really good insight into how you operate, what angle you come up from. It's really good to see that you're a value-driven business rather than sort of a just get bums on seats kind of business, and that's really, really good to hear. So thanks ever so much, Richard,
You're
for
welcome.
on one of our first ever podcasts. I hope that you enjoyed taking part, and we'll be back in touch again shortly to perhaps arrange another call to sort of discuss the lead capture and how we can help you in that area and share some of what we've done as well.
Yeah, I look forward to it. Thanks, Rebecca.